What's up, Cannabis congregation? Thanks for tuning in for Sunday's edition of Cannabis Legalization News. Today, we're joined by Cannabis Liaison Derrick Patrick to discuss social equity, expungement initiatives, and tax revenue allocations. But first, we are going to get into a little bit of cannabis news. Or actually, we might talk about that a little later. But let's just get into it now. How's everybody doing?
Hey.
Doing good, Lauren. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Sunny day in Chicago.
Yeah, I got to finally go to Chicago yesterday. So now I'm back in Peoria in the rural parts. But Derrick, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. It's a new experience for me, so I'm glad to be here,
Yeah, what do you do, man?
Yeah, so I'm a former community liaison for one of the largest cannabis operators in the United States. So I'm very much so in tune with kind of what's going on in the space from an internal perspective. I was behind the scenes pretty much representing the community integration team. So I was out, trying to build relations with the community, filling out what the community needs are, their demands, and kind of what they expect out of the industry, and trying to be that bridge, to kind of, move this industry where it needs to go as far as the social equity piece.
So is it all right if you tell us what MSO you were working for?
Yeah, sure. I don't think they'll mind too much. It was Cresco Labs. So they're vertically integrated. We're in about 12 states right now. And they just rolled out the Sunnyside locations. If you're in Illinois, I'm sure you'll be able to find them. It's brand new. So
it sounds like you liked working with them. I mean, do you feel like they were making an honest effort in doing what they're doing?
Well, they certainly have somewhat of a vision when it comes to social equity. They did have the seed incubator program, which is helping, social equity applicants, minorities break into the industry. They're talking about giving the resources, the technical assistance and writing of the applications, and contingent upon getting licensed. They're also in talks about financially backing them as well, if need be. So I think that has the potential to be very, very, very helpful, and I think there should be more programs like that out there for sure. And that's just one aspect, that they have, as part of their seed program. But as part of the community integration team as a whole, there's also other work to be done, like getting people out of jail for their cannabis related convictions. So I was part of partnering with organizations doing that work in the communities. So it's good that they're doing that sort of stuff, as well as educating the community about the potential that cannabis has, and the potential it can have on our communities. So
how hard is that? Because I try to tell people that cannabis has an amazing ability to positively impact the community. And last week I had to be at a court hearing for one community in Illinois that banned it. So far, they even banned hemp farming.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people are really upset right now, because obviously, if we look at the destruction that the war on drugs has had on the Black community and minorities in general, but Black people specifically, the people in jail right now is crazy, and people are still in jail for it. I mean, the process of getting your record cleared is still taking longer than I believe that's needed, and people know that, and people are making millions of dollars in the process of it. And people are upset. I mean, it makes sense if you make something legal after it's been illegal for so many years, and put people in prison for it, like and the majority of ownership is white men. It's like, what is that all about?
They also get upset about this when we talk about social equity, right? Like people talking about, like, when you say Black Lives Matter and they come back with All Lives Matter, you're like, that's not what I'm saying, motherfucker. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But, to that point right now on Twitter, trending in the food is marijuana facts, right? It is number, for food, I think it's number 1, right?
For food.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
I think. I thought the reason why it was trending for food was because they had one of them where Scooby snacks are the first edible. No, that's a fake marijuana fact.
Well, and then so the whole Black Lives Matter and the racial speaking, though, this whole freaking law is based off like testimony here from Anslinger says I wish I could show you what a small marijuana cigarette can do to one of our degenerate Spanish-speaking residents. That's why our problem is so great.
Spanish speaking.
I mean, come
overt
on.
racism.
It's just, it's just like, and most of who are low mentally because of social and racial conditions. I mean, this mofo, I mean, that's what, number one, fake marijuana fact.
Yeah, but it is trending on Twitter. There's one about Bob Marley. You can't get women pregnant while you're under a marijuana's influence. That is a faked marijuana fact. I mean, but it's pretty kind of interesting that there's still so much bombardment of actual facts regarding marijuana that are just lies, and having those be so pervasive can make a trend like this, trend on Twitter. Like my favorite fake marijuana fact from the past was that it killed brain cells, and then you look at the actual science behind that, and you're like, no, that was literally not even close to what the fact said, but
or that it's not medicine,
right?
Or that it's not medicine. Or that it's something that we should be arresting people and ruining their lives for and throwing them into prison, so that we now have to address a mass expungement of records. And that's something that the Illinois law did. A lot of the law, I mean, it was 600 pages and 300 pages of it was amendments. So they had to go in and fix all these other crimes that were all over the place and create these, minor cannabis offense that you could get automatically expunged. And I think some of the tax revenue is going toward those types of programs to pay for the auto expungement.
Nice. But is any of that tax revenue going to law enforcement? Derrick and I were talking, and he was curious about how much is still going to that.
If as far as law enforcement is concerned, I believe part of the cannabis tax revenue is going towards the state police as well. I'm familiar with the R3 program in Illinois, which is good, but I think especially with everything, the climate of the U.S. right now, I think we need to revisit and really examine where those funds are going, because it should only be going to the most impacted communities, negatively impacted communities.
Right. And that may require an amendment. Again, it's a long law. So if you're trying to find the taxes, you can go toward the end of it where the word tax is just all over the place at the end. And there's pages and pages on that law, and this tries to summarize it, but it says first, revenue to administer cost and expungement of facilitation costs. So they're paying to undo what they did. And then after that, drug treatment fund, 2%. Local government distributed fund for crime and DUI prevention, 8%. Perhaps that's the police aspect. 25% to the R3, that's restore, reinvest, and renew. 20% to HHS, or Department of Health Service Community Services Fund for substance abuse and mental. 10% to fix the budget, and then 35% back to the general fund, which is everybody's favorite place to put money when you're a legislature, into the general fund.
The general fund.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that the general fund is where they're trying to leave some gray area.
Yeah, but 35%. I mean, they're still giving it 35% to the general fund and then 10% to pay off the debt. So, I mean, how much do you think a state is going to go for without wetting their beak into the general fund of this type of plant being taxed now,
I think Washington's already dependent on that too. That money coming in, I think it's allocated per the size of the county down here. King County is pretty big. So, they've recently taken away our transportation fund has been reduced because they changed the taxes on the car tax. And it's only a matter of time they start dipping into that free money out there. That's crazy.
It's not free. It's called the general fund. Yeah. So, Derrick, what type of things would Cresco have you doing in your role as what was it? Was it outreach director or?
Yeah, you could. It was classified as community liaison, pretty much outreach. I was oftentimes pretty much the first point of contact with the organizations that we wanted to work with. So I'd vet these organizations, figure out what their programs are about, reach out to them, kind of explain what we have going on, and kind of pretty much ask them, is there any way that you'd be open to us supporting? Because we appreciate the work that you do. And so I flew all around. I've been to Philadelphia. We did an expungement there with the Justice. I'm trying to remember the name of the organization now. Institute for Community Justice. I'm sorry, they might hate me for that after this, but in New York, we were working with the Urban League over there, the Robin Hood Foundation, trying to figure out ways that we can even, partner with universities as well, as far as getting some curriculum developed.
That's great.
So so then after I gather that information, I'll take it back to leadership. We talk about it, and then we kind of make the decision going from there.
Like, I'm not kidding. We get a lot of calls and viewers from Pennsylvania. They're all about this micro grower license that's been proposed in the SB 350 they have over there. But we're talking about the Illinois law, and then you're also going in other states where you're operating. But that one is thick as to, like, here's where the money goes. Like, that tax section was dozens of pages long. The current bill in Pennsylvania is only 35 pages, just kind of makes, and then when they do these ballot initiatives, they're pretty short on details. So I just kind of, it makes it like it's not even taking it serious. Like, you need this community liaison or this community outreach person that's out there helping to navigate all the obstacles that might come with it. And then also getting public support. So like how Illinois spent pages going over, like, this money goes here, and this money goes here, and this money goes here, and somebody's going to go out in the community and then build all these bridges, and cannabis is going to literally reinvest into the community. It's fascinating how Illinois put it together. And so when other states come by, and I'm like, look, if you guys want to be serious, you're going to have to beef up this 35 pages. I mean, New York's bill is like only 140 pages. I'm like, all right, well, how are you going to spend the money, and who's going to benefit? Because that's the people whose constituency that you can put together, and then they can call their legislatures and then get it passed. So, I mean, I was really impressed with how Illinois has done this, but we're going to have to see how this social equity plays out, right?
Yeah, well, these operators in the space, they make commitments in their licenses of applications, and so part of my job, was to kind of make sure we're upholding those commitments, because the work hasn't all the time been completely done. They're right. They're writing it, and they have to be held accountable for what they said they were going to do. Part of that is like things like the incubator program, financial assistance, to drug abuse clinics, et cetera. All these things are outlined right there in the applications. It's just a matter of actually doing it.
They're all conditions. And so when you get that application and then they grant you that license, it's like, okay, well, looks like you got some work to do there, sport. I want to keep that cannabis license.
Derrick, have you guys? Okay. I was saying, have you guys looked at the expungement for like LA and San Francisco, where they did it digitally? Where they were able, like, some super nerd knows their system and was able to pull out records. Is there anything you guys look like that?
As far as like the automatic expungement process or something like that. I remember one expungement event. I can't remember the exact process. I don't know if it was automatic expungement, but I do know that they were at least talking about it, and maybe they are doing automatic. But I know in Illinois there hasn't been automatic. Everything has been paperwork, and you had to pay to get your rap sheet. You got to pay to get the fingerprinting done. Obviously, you got to find some pro bono lawyers, to actually go down there and look at each individual case. And it's tedious, and there is a financial component to it as well. So I don't know. I think there's still work needs to be done with making that process a little bit smoother.
Oh, absolutely. And like, that's not my area. Like, that's not my wheelhouse. I've never been a criminal practitioner. So it's like, I need to get an expungement. It's too bad you're not a bank. I mean, I could help you if you were a bank. I wouldn't. And then, so like, I try to make referrals out, but I should try to find somebody and work with somebody so we can like make a system and like a web page. Cause I'm good at making web pages. I need somebody to help me make the, then you do this step, then you do that step. All right, cool. If only I would have been arrested and I needed to get expunged. I'd also be a social equity applicant, and I'd have like 10 applications in right now.
Right.
Hey, do you have any applications in, Derrick? Are you a member of any teams?
Well, that's a very interesting topic because I was actually working on an application myself for a dispensary. I gathered a team of people that I thought would be good fits, and it was challenging. And being just observing, the incubator program and where they're teaching you pretty much the different sections and kind of how to go about it. Still, I mean, the total amount of pages, like 400, is very, very technical, and you really have to think a lot of things through. Not to mention the amount of money or capital that you will have to come up with, and it simply became unrealistic, at least for me, to kind of head that operation. And I know people in the industry, so there was talk about just trying to get onto the application via, just someone who could be in charge of, the marketing or the community engagement piece. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get on any licenses officially.
Well,
so.
were you arrested for just the right amount of marijuana or cannabis?
No.
You see, I'm sure if you had that critical deciding factor, you might have been.
Well, I know my dad surely has, and he's been.
Then I think that counts. If you can get your dad, if you get your dad's rap sheet, you're social equity.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'll be a social equity applicant that way, and also because I reside in Austin, in the Austin community, also, which is one of the disproportionately impacted areas. I've lived there all my life.
That's one of the things that I'm trying to do for the show this coming fall, to have some more fun with it and to show off our package for helping with applications. Do some like kind of and with the man in the White House, some type of reality show where it's the social equity president, and then we have business people in the Chicagoland area, pitch us their concept and be like, all right, we're going to partner with you. And then have you ever seen how Acreage does it? It probably is close to how Cresco's incubator program worked, perhaps. Did you guys have any management contracts on the line with that, with like little percentage fees and stuff?
Well, that's another good question that I would have to let them answer that question, because as far as I know, it hasn't been anything. The contract hasn't really been written for that, so it's kind of up in the air. At least the last thing I heard of. So it could be, it may not be. I think it's a case by case basis also. So, but they'll have to make the official, answer to that question.
Am I wrong to think that Cresco is like an investment firm? Like it's not. It's just
it's a corporation. If that makes sense, it's a corporation. You can replace Cresco with Target. It's essentially, it's run the same way. Well, maybe Target's a bad example, but there's really no vertically integrated. Like if I was going to say, picture it as Cargill, well, that's fine. But then Cargill sells a lot of their stuff to like Tyson, and then it becomes chicken. I mean, and so like usually you're not.
They're multi-state, right?
They're multi-state.
They're multi-state. I think it's about 12 states too right now, and I think
they're a big
still
operator.
Expanding.
Well, the reason why I asked,
they're huge.
Because I'd imagine the incubator program is something that, hey, here's your start, but we're also going to get a percentage of that, and also you're going to wear our T-shirt. I mean, is that how it works?
It's similar. It's similar, but then you have to understand that each corporate entity could be its own thing. So if Cresco is trying to, you're going to get license capped. So there could probably only be 10 Sunnysides in Illinois. And then if they want to get license capped, they're going to have to play by the social equity rules of the game. So they might have to make little sub LLCs out there and be like, all right, here's this LLC and its social equity points come from this person owning 51%. And then Cresco Holding Corporation owes 49%. And they might also have a 5% management fee.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting that much. I think because at least in the incubator program, how it works was they were suggesting whoever wanted to get one establish themselves as an LLC, and they'll get the majority of the proceeds. And I mean, if they get help financially, I think that's what's kind of confusing. Is it going to be like a grant or a loan type situation? And I think that might be where they might get some money for that. I'm not sure though.
I mean, to get a start into this billion-dollar industry, I mean, it's not asking too much to say, hey, I'm going to pay you back. I mean, there's no shame in that game. I'm just curious in how that really
convertible promissory note, probably. And so convertible promissory note is essentially like, that you have that incubator that's also going to provide some capital. And, I've seen them provide capital. They usually provide it at a very nice interest rate. And by very nice, I mean high. And then you can pay back that debt for your loan that you got into the business with. And then after you've paid it off so much, then the person who holds that note is entitled to convert it into a particular amount of stock.
Right.
That makes sense.
And I had a question. Before the whole social equity thing has been big, but that's only since adult use. What
Correct.
was social equity before, when the medical programs didn't exist?
There was
And
no such thing.
so I'm curious to know, like, how it just seems a little shady that kind of put people already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
So
Well, social equity is okay, bro.
I think we need to take a few steps back. Like, I don't think the owners right now should feel happy with taking a small percentage. I don't think that's right. I think it should be more investment or more opportunity, for the people who got into the game. But it's essentially racism, systemic racism,
Right
now.
Well,
But I really like. Go ahead, Miggy.
Well, I was just saying, like, we talked last week with the folks from DC and how social equity has been an afterthought in all these programs, right? Like medical, first you fight for medical. And then like here in Washington State, it's the Wild West, where medical was just, you get a seed, I grow a plant, I find a spot to sell it. And then eventually it started to become a business, right? No boundaries at all. Whereas in Illinois, even with your medical program, there's $1 million boundaries. How many folk do you know have $1 million? I couldn't. I mean,
but then that's the problem. That's why the Safe Banking Act is so important, because opening a bar or restaurant in certain areas in Chicago is expensive, because like real estate and however expensive you want to build it. But opening a liquor store that sells, food doesn't need to be as expensive. So, depending on how swanky you want to make your place, you can make it realistic that you could open it if you could go to a bank and get a loan. But because there's no Safe Banking Act and it's all in cash, then it's even more difficult to access the industry, because now you need to use rich friends to get that capital. You can't use a bank. There's not like an SBA loan for social equity for cannabis, but maybe in 10 years, when they get their act together at the federal regulation level, there might be. If the Illinois model is kind of the model with Cory Booker's program, the MORE Act, where you see this taxation scheme, it could be a federal thing in 10 years. But like right now, that's hard. Like, finding that money.
Yeah,
totally. And I experienced that firsthand. I mean, I'm excited because I think I could have potentially ran a dispensary. And the capital was an issue, for sure.
Yeah. Right now, the lowest bearing capital, I think, place to be would be Oklahoma.
Yes,
because their laws are just like Washington was. So, I mean, you still have a chance if you have a seed, no matter. Because we did a Seattle Hemp Fest there, or we did Oklahoma Hemp Fest, and we got all smoked out at a Marriott or some shit. And but the locals there, I didn't realize that Tulsa, or not Tulsa. We were in I don't remember. It was Oklahoma City, I think. But the black community there is huge. Like ranchers coming out, and then it was a majority of minorities that are coming out checking us out and seeing how they can get involved. But I did see a couple of white guys with suitcases full of money asking, "Hey, do you know where to get seeds?" So I mean, the barrier is either you got a lot, you got nothing, and start toiling the soil.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting license type that we see sometimes, and it's the micro grower license, where it would be a very small number of plants, like 150. So essentially, you could really try to set up your neighborhood weed guy shop, which would be nice, because then like 150 plants, nobody's going to get rich off a 150 plant farm. They might make a handsome income, they might make a fine living being a traded professional, like a craftsman. It's like, you only got 150 plants. If you're not good at this, you're going to go out of business, but if you can grow that stuff and you can sell it and you command a premium for your product, you might be able to make $300,000 to $400,000 a year. That's not like, oh my gosh, money, but it is. That's pretty good money. That's pretty good money, for a fair trade of growing high quality cannabis.
Yeah, it's a starter kit.
Yeah, like a craft, this is your craft. You can make something happen. And I think I feel like for small business purposes, that's totally fine. I think there should be more of that.
Yeah. But then with the Illinois model of the craft grow at 5,000 square foot, you're not talking about 150 plants. You're talking about not quite 10 times that, maybe 7 or 8 times that. So about 1,000 to 1,200 plants, depending on your configuration that you're running. So that, is kind of up there in the sense that now you're talking like multi-million-dollar construction build out and then staffing and all that. And that pushes the price right up. And so like if your cultivation price point to get into the entry of the business is brought down to like $1 million as opposed to 5 to 7, you're going to get more people able to actually get in the industry. But then of course, like if something's easier to get into, it's easier to fail in, you know?
I mean, but you should have the opportunity. I mean, just like with any other business, it's gonna be risk involved. If you're not doing what you need to be doing, or you're just not good at it, you're gonna fail.
Maybe we need that micro grower amendment. You know, like it could be another license type. You could have a micro grow license type eventually, maybe one day.
I feel like, I think as long as you're able to get your product tested and it's somehow tracked in the system, I think you should be able to operate. I don't think you need to jump through this many hoops, you know, to get a license.
Yes. I totally
well,
agree.
then we have to worry about theft because like suddenly if you got, you know, 50 plants hanging, not 50 plants, 50 pounds of high quality product, just kind of like hanging out down the block, you know, you have to worry about somebody trying to steal that. So the security aspect is one of the things that really does put that price to the barrier up. And you have to make sure that you got that safe, you know, the vault. The DEA approved vault, like, you know, stored on there, like in the retail location. The retail location probably also has drop safes with just buckets of cash filled in there because of that stupid, you know, no banking rule. Man, I mean, the challenge, the struggle is real right now in the cannabis industry for a low barrier to entry.
Yeah, it is. And I know T.O. Hardiman was talking about this Peddlers license for, you know, the people who just want to sell the weed and very, very much small scale, almost like a local drug dealer almost, but more legitimate, obviously. But I'm not sure what happened with that. I know he brought this up months ago, I believe.
Well, that's going to require I think the state has occupied the field and preempted any municipality from trying to have a peddler's license, to be honest. But of course, Oakland thinks it can ban hemp farming. So you never know what a city thinks it can do. And I think that the state has to allow the licensing structure. And so a peddler's license, like, what would that even look like? You know, and how are they getting supply and all that? So I don't think the dispensary license is going to get more difficult to get. I think it's going to get easier to get, but do I think it'll one day be something that you can just get a peddler's license? No way. We don't even have that for liquor. Like, you know, it's not a guy walking down the street, beer here, got some beer. You know, that would be hilarious, but we don't do that. We still have like liquor stores, you know?
Yeah, I guess with liquor, but you do have the Lotte cart man who's walking around, you know, selling his you know, his goods. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, let's put it out there. I mean,
but that's one of the cool things about cannabis is like we could talk about like, well, do we want the regulations are 5 minutes old? We're not married to these regulations. We have to start somewhere. What do we want to see? And we can have these kind of conversations. We could put forth legislation and language. We're like, we want this. You know, that's cool.
Like Derrick was saying, though, if you could just get your stuff tested and be involved in the market that way, you know, that'd be the lowest barrier.
Tested and tracked. So you get the testing and the tracking, state gets their money and their purity. And so like there could entirely be some app one day, you know, it's just you send the weed out to the testing facility, the COA or whatever is, you know, there. And then somebody on the app could be searching for it and be like, oh, I want to buy this. And they buy it in Bitcoin or dollars by then, who knows? And then the peddler shows up with it.
Yeah. I mean, look at Postmates. I mean, they're delivering alcohol. They eventually should be a conversation. They should be able to maybe serve cannabis as well.
Well, have you guys?
Let's talk about how that legislation would look. But then you're going to have these people that are buying their $1 million licenses. They're going to be like, "What? We don't need that. Why?"
But look who owns it, though. Look who owns it. Should it be up to them? Who's making the decisions in all of this?
Oh yeah, but that's the thing. Business is the higher you get into it, it's going to be crooked wherever you look, and then you just try to avoid the crooked ones. It's a whole thing in and of itself.
Has Illinois or Chicago reorganized their laws as far as like liquor goes for restaurants? Like here in Seattle, because of the COVID situation, you know, it's like now a restaurant can have liquor delivered to you. You know, that was not before.
We've basically turned the state into New Orleans. Yeah. And so like right now I can be like, hey, bar and restaurant, I would like a hamburger and a Manhattan to go. Okay, I'll be there in 15 minutes, and then, you could just pick up your burger and your Manhattan to go. And some places have that. That was a new, and I was actually talking to one of the lawyers that was involved in that executive order change, because restaurants and bars were hurting so much. Pick up hard drinks or hard liquor.
But where else would sell cannabis besides the dispensary? Like liquor's being sold by restaurants, right? That might be the peddler option there. But
the liquor licenses are very like I looked at my cities, Peoria, Illinois, the metropolis of the Midwest, right? There is liquor license A through double L, and so like it's not like we don't know how to regulate a vice. We clearly know how to regulate a vice. And so that we just have these very restrictive license types right now, sure. But in 10 years, there might be 9 different types of retail license. We don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on in Illinois or in this country at this point.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. And the worst thing is Donald Trump even up and ruined Flag Day. It's his birthday. And it's also Flag Day, and I'm like, what up?
No, it's also Obama Day.
It's also Obama Day?
It is. Everybody's got to tweet a picture to Obama. Trump.
What's that?
Everybody's got to tweet a picture of Obama to Trump. That's how it's working today.
Oh, really?
I'm telling you, I love Twitter, dude. I'll be on this bitch. Like the whole fake marijuana news section, like you're going through all those. It's just all memes and jokes, like, yeah. That's why I love it.
Or fake news, fake marijuana facts. Hallucinations of Obama. That's it. Yeah, Scooby Snacks were the first edibles.
Hey, Derrick. So you're not with Cresco number. Who are you with, or what are you doing?
Right now, I'm unemployed right now. I'm working towards my broker's license right now. To switch gears.
Stock or real estate?
No, real estate. Be a broker, property management, somewhere along those lines. Maybe eventually I can be in a place where I'm selling the real estate that the cannabis operators are buying up.
That's what you need.
I really want to get my hands on a cannabis lounge. So this is kind of like a larger plan for me, because I feel like right now it's a lot of hoops to jump through. I'm gonna just try to get grounded in something,
Is a lounge that Cresco might be involved in? Is that something they'd want to expand into?
Nah, I haven't heard anything about the consumption lounge. The only thing I've heard about consumption lounges is the one they approved in Springfield. I haven't heard any talks about something.
I think we're going to have one in Peoria here pretty soon. Like the current dispensary is building out this huge building, like a couple blocks away, and I'm like, boy, sure is a lot of space in there. Yeah, which would be awesome. So, like, if we have a cannabis lounge, like, adjacent to a dispensary in Peoria in another month, we'll be like, all right, well, unfortunately, all the marijuana events or the cannabis events that I used to go to in Chicago all the time are now Zoom meetings, but I'm going to go down to the weed shop and smoke with some friends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you know anything about the Chicago market? I mean, the market probably would love it, wouldn't they? I mean, what's the holdup these days?
The holdup is complexity issues, and so because Chicago is substantially larger than Peoria or Springfield, you have substantially more people who can object or who want to wet their beak, and so because of that, it makes progress sometimes slower, usually slower, but it can very often go really, really fast if whatever particular alderman in that area in which that it's going to open. Everybody's on board. Somebody's getting their beak wet somehow, and they're able to open it. That would be what I think it would take in Chicago. I think that's what it takes in like any city. Like you need to have that community participation, that community commitment to whatever you're trying to open and do. Otherwise, they won't let you do it. But yeah, it stinks because that Springfield one I think would probably be open right now if it wasn't for COVID, as they announced it like before COVID, but it wasn't that much before COVID. It was like February or something. So like the build out hadn't even been done yet.
Right.
But I'm optimistic. I think that might be another license type. I think there's going to be more testing license types because I haven't seen that application in the rules yet. So those will probably be coming, and so you can get like a lab license. Research license types, I bet will come, and then just delivery seems like it's always tied to your dispensing license. So then dispensaries that are in existence would have the option to deliver for maybe an additional fee, or who knows.
Right. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's see.
We'll see. I mean, the thing about the Illinois stuff, though, is 25% to the Criminal Justice Information Project's funds for Restore, Reinvest, and Renew. Now, will those make funds available to help bring down the cost of entry for social equity applicants, you think?
Say that again?
So like when the Illinois is breaking up their money from the tax revenue, how much of that is going to go for these types of grant and loan programs? The most recent tally I heard, of course, they all came from the operators that are currently there, was $31 million was set forth or set aside in this fund for, low interest loans and grants to qualified social equity applicants. Yeah. So like
grants,
that's, well, grants,
money that doesn't have to be paid back.
It may just be low interest loans. They do have another application out for those. And then the statute does have like, here's what a qualified social equity applicant is. And you can't really be one until after you win. And so after you win, then you're a social equity applicant who's won this license. Then you can apply, and it's a fairly lengthy application process. You're going to need your application essentially again and submit it to the IDPFR or whomever is handling the money at the state of Illinois, and try to get some money for your build out for your operations, for your craft or your dispensary.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't have a prediction on what that amount is going to be. I'm not even going to try to guess because I keep getting surprised. It's not going to be something that I'm going to be happy with more than likely. So
yeah,
I'm not even going to try to predict it. I'll just see what happens.
Do you think they could? Because I mean, that barrier is still pretty high, no matter what, and it's kind of intimidating when you look at all those zeros. But why couldn't there be, with that kind of money, a program that just embraces a person in and says, okay, you're an applicant qualified to meet all these barriers. We're going to give you a license. We're going to set you up with a space. Why can't they just do something like that?
Well, they're not going to do it because I think it's these business people. They want their money, and they don't care about the history of it at all. The social equity to some people is a joke. They just want people to kind of be happy with what they're giving, people. So that's why they want it, is greed. That's it. There's no other reason. It could be that simple. If you're qualified,
there is a lot of greed in that industry. Like just so many people that just have eyeballs that look like dollar signs.
Yeah, that's all it is. And I get it. Business is cutthroat, but it's larger than just business.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why they don't do it how you suggested, Miggy, is because then they get overpromised and underdelivered. So like if they make them jump through all the hoops first, and then they give them access to the capital after they've won, I think that's their theory on it. It's like, well, we gave them to somebody who was qualified, and they were also social equity, so then they were able to apply and obtain $500,000 to help with their dispensary program or their dispensary build out and startup costs. So you don't need that loan until after you win that license,
give you like an edge, I guess, in the competition.
No, you want the competition pretty flat. And so then after that, I mean, so like a lot of the applicants would always mention, as a qualified social equity applicant, we have this money, and then we also intend to apply for that state money.
No. I don't know.
Yeah.
Poor Derrick, man. I sense your pain because you've been trying to get into that $1 million barrier, man.
I mean, it's painful. Like I think our people have been hurting for hundreds of years, and this is just another reminder that we're still in a country that doesn't really care about their history. They're not going to address it fairly. It's not about it. They're not going to really work towards equity. And I think that's my conclusion. Until they force their hand. That's it.
And each one's making the move. I mean, the fact that in Illinois that you have to be a social equity applicant just to win one of these licenses.
Yeah, but you need 51%.
Yeah,
that's all you need. Who has the rest? Somebody's still getting their pockets greased with something. Sure. They're just trying to cover it up. I mean that people, we needed social equity so that anybody could have got a license. That's the whole reason for it, but it's not a cover up. We can see right through it. People are still going to be getting the money regardless of what they say. However good it sounds, look at who's getting paid. look at it, and that's all you're gonna need to know. You know, so.
Derrick, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can we find or follow you if we have any more questions about social equity?
Yeah, so primarily you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can find me by searching, my name, Derrick Patrick. I'm as a Cannabis Liaison, and on Instagram at Derrick Patrick _official. And that's where you'll find me. That's where you can get in touch.
All right, we'll throw those in the description. Before we do go, Damon did get a book from Tom. He said, just wanted to say thanks for the book. It was a great read. If you'd like to get a book, make sure you email Tom or me. First one to email us gets a free book and a little welcome package complete with Bovida packets and some doob tubes. So make sure you email us. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with all cannabis legalization news. We will see you on Wednesday.
All right. Thank you.